The city skyline shimmered through the tall glass windows of the Silverline Corporation headquarters, where CEO Amelia Grant sat behind her mahogany desk, reviewing the company's quarterly reports. Her reputation as one of the most brilliant and demanding businesswomen in the country was known by all, but lately, her focus had been slipping. Every evening, her daughter, Lily, came home from school glowing with excitement, not about her friends or hobbies, but about Mr. Jack. Amelia assumed he was one of her teachers, but there was something unusual about how her daughter spoke of him. "He's not like the other teachers, Mom," Lily would say. "He makes math fun." At first, Amelia smiled and brushed it off. But when she noticed Lily solving complex algebraic problems far beyond her grade level, equations Amelia herself struggled to recall, curiosity began to burn inside her. Who was this man making her daughter love math so much? Weeks passed, and Amelia couldn't stop thinking about it. Her schedule left little time for personal life. After her husband's death 4 years ago, she'd buried herself in work, leaving nannies and tutors to raise Lily. Maybe this, Mr. Jack, had found a way to reach her where she couldn't. One Saturday morning, Amelia decided to pick Lily up from her after-school tutoring herself instead of sending her driver. When she arrived at the small learning center tucked in the corner of a quiet neighborhood, she was surprised. The place didn't look like a fancy tutoring facility. The sign above the door read, "Bright Minds Community Learning Space." Inside, there were no glossy posters or high-tech gadgets, just handwritten charts, old math books, and small wooden desks. Children of different ages sat together, scribbling numbers and laughing. In the center stood a man in his late 30s, wearing a plain gray shirt with rolled-up sleeves. His hair was slightly messy, and his hands were covered in chalk dust. He had an easy smile and a calm presence. Amelia watched as he crouched beside a young boy, patiently explaining a formula, then walked to Lily, giving her a small nod of encouragement. Lily noticed her mother and waved enthusiastically. "Mom, this is Mr. Jack," she said, grabbing Amelia's hand and pulling her forward. Jack stood and wiped his hands. "Hello, Ms. Grant," he said politely, though there was a flicker of nervousness in his voice. "You know who I am?" Amelia asked, slightly taken aback. "Hard not to," he replied with a faint smile. "You're on the cover of at least 2 business magazines in this room." Lily giggled. "Mom, Mr. Jack says even CEOs need math sometimes." Amelia smiled politely but couldn't help her curiosity. Something about him didn't fit the image of a typical tutor. "How did you start teaching here?" she asked. Jack hesitated. "It's a long story," he said softly. "Let's just say I wanted to help kids who couldn't afford fancy schools or tutors." Amelia looked around. The children seemed genuinely happy, focused yet relaxed. It was a warmth she rarely saw in corporate environments. Before she could ask more, a small girl ran up to Jack crying over a broken pencil. Jack knelt down, gently fixed it, and handed it back with a reassuring smile. There was something paternal in the way he interacted with the children. Later that night, Amelia couldn't get him out of her mind. There was kindness in his eyes, but also pain, something hidden. She asked her assistant to do a quiet background check. The next morning, the report landed on her desk. Jack Reynolds, age, 38, former software engineer at Silverline Corporation. Resigned 5 years ago after a project collapse. Single father. Amelia froze. "He used to work for me." She barely remembered him, one of hundreds of engineers under her leadership. But the timing of his resignation aligned with one of the company's toughest years, when a failed AI project led to layoffs and burnout. She vaguely recalled a quiet employee who left after taking multiple leaves due to family issues. Her stomach twisted. Could it be? Amelia decided to see him again. This time, she went without Lily, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. When she arrived, Jack was locking up the center. "Ms. Grant," he said, surprised. "Did Lily forget something?" "No," she said, stepping closer. "I came to talk to you." Jack looked uneasy but nodded toward the small office inside. They sat across from each other, the faint sound of rain tapping against the window. "I read your file," she began. "You used to work for Silverline." Jack sighed. "I did. Until my wife got sick." His voice faltered. "She had leukemia. I spent months trying to balance work, hospital visits, and raising our son." Eventually, I had to choose. I chose family. Amelia felt a lump in her throat. When she passed, he continued, I promised myself I'd never let another child feel lost the way my son did. So, I started teaching here. Math was something I was good at. But more than that, I wanted to give kids hope. His honesty disarmed her completely. For a moment, the CEO mask slipped, and she saw a man who had sacrificed everything for love and fatherhood. I'm sorry, she whispered. Jack shrugged lightly. Life doesn't wait for sympathy. It keeps going. So, we find ways to move with it. Amelia looked down. Lily loves your classes. You've done something I couldn't. Jack smiled softly. She's brilliant. She just needed someone to remind her that mistakes aren't failures. There was silence between them, a warm, unspoken understanding. Over the next few weeks, Amelia found herself visiting more often. Sometimes she'd sit quietly in the back, watching Lily learn. Other times, she'd talk to Jack about education, purpose, and the strange distance success created between people. Slowly, admiration began to grow into something deeper. One evening, after class, Jack was fixing a leaky faucet in the small kitchen when Amelia walked in, sleeves rolled up. Let me help, she offered. He chuckled. You, a CEO fixing a faucet. I can handle more than spreadsheets, she teased. They both laughed, a rare, unguarded laugh that lingered longer than it should have. As they worked side by side, their hands brushed briefly. A silent pause followed, filled with the electricity of unspoken feelings. Jack looked away. You should probably get going. Lily's waiting. But Amelia stayed. Jack, she said softly, you've done more for my daughter than I ever could. And for that, I'll always be grateful. He smiled but didn't reply. There was something in his eyes, gratitude, longing, and restraint. Days turned into months. Lily's confidence soared, and her grades improved dramatically. Amelia started sponsoring the Learning Center anonymously, ensuring that Jack never ran out of supplies. When he found out, he confronted her. You didn't have to do that, he said. I wanted to, she replied simply. Because what you're doing matters. Jack looked at her with quiet intensity. You're not just helping me. You're helping all of them. Amelia took a deep breath. Then let's do more. With her corporate resources and his passion, they turned the small community center into a thriving foundation for underprivileged kids. News outlets began to notice. CEO and former engineer build hope through math. The headlines called it a redemption story, but to Amelia and Jack, it was something more. Late one evening, as the children left and the center quieted, Amelia stood by the window, watching the city lights. Jack joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. Hard to believe how far this place has come, he said. She smiled. Because of you. He shook his head. Because of us. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Amelia saw not the man who once worked under her, but someone who understood her, her fears, her loneliness, her dreams. Jack, she said softly, you changed my daughter's life, and mine. He looked at her for a long moment. You gave me a chance to do something that mattered again. Maybe that's what we both needed. The next morning, as Lily ran ahead into class, Amelia and Jack shared a brief smile. The bond between them was unspoken yet undeniable, a connection built not on wealth or power, but on healing, purpose, and love quietly found in unexpected places. Months later, during an award ceremony where Amelia was honored for her educational initiative, she invited Jack on stage. Cameras flashed as she turned to the audience and said, "This man reminded me that intelligence isn't built in boardrooms, it's nurtured with patience and compassion. He taught my daughter more than numbers. He taught her belief." The crowd applauded, but Jack just smiled modestly. After the event, as they stood outside under the glow of city lights, Amelia whispered, "You know, I never asked, what made you start teaching Lily in the first place?" He chuckled. "She reminded me of my son, curious, stubborn, brilliant. I couldn't say no when she asked for help with her math homework that first day." Amelia looked up at him, eyes soft. "Then I guess fate had its own plan." Jack's gaze held hers. "Maybe it still does." And in that quiet moment, amid the hum of traffic and city lights, they stood together, no longer CEO and ex-employee, but two people who'd rebuilt their worlds through kindness, courage, and love born from the simplest act, teaching a child to believe in herself.